Welcome to Threads of Gold. Today's guest is a high school senior, a children's book illustrator, and a childhood cancer cousin. Thank you for joining us and welcome, Hannah Weisbrod. Welcome, Hannah, to Threads of Gold. Thank you for taking some time to talk to me.
It's no problem. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited about this podcast because I love art and you are such a talented artist. And it's going to be really fun to just kind of talk about the process and everything that goes into it. And it's especially impressive to people like me because I can barely draw stick figures. So I just am in awe at what you are able to do. But before we talk about the children's books you've illustrated and the one you're currently getting ready to work on, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about um, how I met you, and that was through your aunt and your cousin, so Laura and Cole Eicher. So you're a childhood cancer cousin. So I know you're a little bit younger than Cole, but do you mind sharing just a little bit about what it was like having a cousin with cancer and what your whole family went through during that time?
So I do remember probably one of my earliest memories of finding out that Cole had cancer was probably something that I look back on now and I feel really bad because of how naive I was. And we were on a call on Skype, and my parents knew at the time that he did have cancer, so that's why we would talk to him very frequently. And I was around 5, I think, at the time. And I remember seeing him, and he had gone through chemotherapy, so he didn't have his hair. And since I wasn't used to seeing him like that, I just, as a 5-year-old would do, I just blatantly asked, "Why are you bald?" Which
Yeah.
uh, I could see his face kind of become more saddened. And I think at that moment I knew that I did something wrong. I didn't know what I did wrong, but I knew what I did. I did something wrong by what I said. And I remember when we ended the call, my parents looked at me and told me, like, you shouldn't have said that to him. And I remember crying and then figuring out that he did have cancer. So
Oh,
that was my
that's
first memory.
That's really hard. I mean, of course you were 5, so how were you supposed to know suddenly your cousin is bald? So I know it must have been really hard for your parents. That's their nephew. So, everyone in the whole family is affected when a child gets cancer. And Cole was 12. He was 12 years old. And thankfully the outcome was good. But during that time, were all of you frightened? Do you remember how it was in your home?
We did, like I mentioned earlier, we did have a lot of Skype calls with him. And I do remember feeling quite anxious because I did have, although since he lives in a different state, I unfortunately didn't get to see him very often. He was in my mind sometimes. My parents would talk about him. And I guess I just remember feeling really sad, especially hearing that other stuff would come up. And I don't remember too much of the details since it was quite a bit ago. But I do remember just kind of feeling really down because I'm like, this isn't getting any better.
Hmm.
Like, because in my mind, I'm like, well, he's sick, and a lot of, sicknesses are supposed to get better. So why isn't this happening with him?
Yeah, wasn't like a cold. Like a few days later, you're bouncing around again, right? So yeah, it went on for a while. Yeah, it's really, really frightening, and I think it's important for people to understand that childhood cancer affects everybody in that child's life, and it really changes your family. But I'm so thankful that Cole was able to make it through his treatments, and he's all grown up now. He's in his 20s and doing really well. And because of my relationship with Cole and Laura, I was privileged to meet you a few years ago, at least virtually. We've never met in person yet, but it feels like we have, but we haven't. Um, but I remember asking you if you would consider illustrating children's books. And at the time, I didn't have a specific project in mind, but you were kind of working on a piece of art for our storybook, Stories Around the Campfire. for
Yeah.
Cole's story. I love it. And you did more than one illustration in that storybook. You did the illustrations for Cole's story about the gold ribbon, and then you also did the one for Carolyn Brynick's story. And that leads us into our discussion today about our latest publication, The Cuddle Crew.
Yeah.
And this children's book is so adorable, and we're also getting ready to finish the activity and coloring book that is its companion. So once that is done, you will have illustrated three books for us, and you're also working on a fourth one as we speak. And can't wait to see what all happens with that one. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the Cuddle Crew and about what it's like to work with an author and try to take whatever image they have in their head and get that down on paper. What goes through your head when you're doing that?
I guess, first of all, since I'm not like, I want to make sure that all the work I put out is to something that somebody else can feel satisfied with because it's for somebody else. I want to make sure somebody else is happy. So it is more nerve-wracking for me. Like, I guess beating down on myself is a lot easier than upsetting somebody else. So it is kind of scary, but once you get to know the person that you're working with, you get to know the goals they have, it's a lot more fun. And it also helps me see different perspectives that I wouldn't have been able to in my own art. Uh,
Mhm.
so I think that's, yeah, in the beginning it was a little intimidating, but after meeting with Carolyn and you, I did feel a lot more comfortable with um, seeing other people's visions of the book that we were all creating.
Yeah, I can't even imagine it because, like I said, I can't even do a stick figure, and yet with Carolyn's book in particular, you are actually taking real photographs of her stuffed animals and her and as a kid with cancer, and you were turning them into illustrations. So I imagine that's very challenging to try. But for some, I mean, really, it was amazing to me how when I look at the illustrations, it looks just like Carolyn and it looks just like her stuffed animals. But there was a lot of back and forth, as you mentioned. I mean, and that's the other thing is it's two different people with two different images in their head. It's not like you're just doing the art for your own book and conjuring up what's in your head. You're having to jump into somebody else's mind and produce what they have in their mind. I don't even know how you do it. And there were so many times like you would send the sketches first and say, "What do you think of this?" And she would tell you what she thinks. And then you would color them all in. And I'm going to ask you to describe that whole process because I really don't know what it is. Like, because you would then later on, stuff I didn't see, I could have never picked up on, like little shadows here or little marks there that you wanted to change and make just perfect. And to me, it was already perfect, but you just saw things I didn't. So, you can you talk about because it's all digital art you're doing, but how do you from start to finish, what's the process?
Okay, so we did mention a little bit about, the beginning stages. I want to make sure that I can understand the author's vision so I can make something that brings their vision to life. That's my whole goal. And after doing that, I create a bunch of little sketches for each page because by this time we had already had the whole thing written out. So I'm like, okay, I'll read the whole story and figure out from page to page which illustrations should be there. And I did little thumbnail sketches, sent them in to see if they were all right. And from there was kind of a back and forth between like, oh, could you change this? And like, oh, the stuffed animal might be a little bit smaller or their limbs are a little longer. And I make these changes. And after all of the sketches were put in place and everything's like, okay, this is what it should pretty much look like in the end. I moved on to the line art, which in my opinion is probably the most technical part and maybe the part that is just the most tedious. So
Can
that
you
part.
tell me why? Why is that so hard?
Yeah, so because this piece has a lot of very clean line art, that's a lot of the times very hard for me to do, especially because there's a lot of round shapes. And if there's such a round shape like that, you can more easily spot like indents or like misshapen forms. So being able to make sure that everything is really clean is a lot harder to do. So it was much more of a tedious process than the other steps because, the sketches, I don't really have to make everything look so crisp. It's just like I'm getting the basic forms of the characters and all that.
Right. And you're doing this in Procreate? Is that where you had
Yes.
started?
Yeah.
So how does that program work? You have like a little stylus or pen or whatever you call it.
Yeah, so I do have an iPad which I do all my digital art on. I use Procreate and it comes with a Apple Pencil that I use to draw. Uh, the only difficulty with the Apple Pencil is that whenever you press down with it, the weight of the pencil changes. And for this specific style, I didn't want that. I wanted everything to be kind of like the same thickness.
Mhm.
So the way I did that was I actually drew this with my finger. I drew the artwork
What?
with my
For every one of these? That's impressive. Wow. You can't tell, like, because it's so thin.
hmm
Interesting. So then after you do the sketching part, the line art, is that what we're using for the coloring book? Is you're taking the line art and transforming it for coloring pages?
Yeah. It's taking, yeah, what you said, you taking the line art and then putting it onto the coloring page. And there are going to be, there was another page that I made that wasn't in the book itself, but that
Mhm.
is going to be in the coloring page. And it looks pretty much the same as if you were to take all the color away in the book itself.
Got it. So when you're going in and doing the coloring, and this is the part that I find so fascinating, you're in your mind, you're thinking about shadows, like maybe there's light in the room, or maybe they're outside and the sun is out, or who knows what. And you're thinking about every little detail so that maybe this part of their face has a bit of a shadow or something like that. How do you figure all that out? Is it just in your head?
So I think for this piece, a lot of the images that I did to make sure it didn't take too long, I mostly focused on the characters rather than the surroundings they were in. When you look at the book, they are sometimes they'll interact with certain props, but the actual background most of the time isn't there. It's only implied based on the wording that you're reading.
Hmm.
And because of that, the shadows that I use are what you'll find are very default when you look at character designs. If you go online and you look at people who design characters with just a blank background, they will oftentimes have a very specific way of shading to where the light doesn't have a specific point of contact. It's just kind of everywhere. So you're like, okay, well, if the light is everywhere, where would the shadow be? And you're like, okay, well, maybe it could be in the ears. It's naturally wherever you are, unless the light is below. It's under the neck, and then sometimes it'll be, in the hair and all that. So that's what I've done for most of it, since the backgrounds, you
Yeah.
don't actually see a lot of the environment, so it's a lot easier to do this kind of shading for me.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and speaking of the backgrounds, you're right. Instead of we just implied Carolyn's in the hospital, or and there was one, I think one illustration where Carolyn is, or Lynn, we call her in the book, but she's in bed looking out, her hospital bed looking out a window. But otherwise, yeah, so speaking of the backgrounds, we had a Zoom call and all of us were on it, you and me and Carolyn and Lindsay, who did a lot of the editing for the book. We're all on the call together. And I'm like, I think we need to add color backgrounds and whatever. And you jumped in. You said, let me do that because you know the art and you know what looks best. And I was like, you go for it. And it looks really, really good. You chose right.
Thank you. Yeah. Even for me, it did take a bit to actually figure out which colors I wanted because when you actually put colors onto the page, you start to realize like, oh, this color kind of makes everything look muddy. It makes everything look flat. Oh, this color kind of matches this person's shirt, so it kind of blends into the background. So color actually is something that I still need to work on. It's maybe one of my weaker skills, but I still do really enjoy doing color because it's kind of like whenever you do get the right color, it's like a little bit of dopamine. Like, oh my God, this looks really good.
Yeah.
Uh, and just testing all these different colors and shades. It was really fun to do that, even though
Yeah.
it's a bit of a challenge.
That's good to hear. I'm so happy, and I know Carolyn loves it too. And I just hope it touches a lot of lives. One of the things that I noticed, I'm going to see if I can find this picture. I don't. It's one of my fa where is this picture? Well, I just love so many of them, but for some reason, um, no, not this one.
It's the one with the blood drawing.
Yes, the one with the blood being drawn. That for some reason, oh, here it is. I don't know if you can see it on my screen.
Yes. Oh my God.
I just find that so precious because it's like she's got one of her little eyes squinted like this, like, it hurts, but she's holding on to her little stuffed animal and just getting through it. And it just looks like so many kids look like when they're getting their blood drawn, and it just
Yeah.
captures that whole feeling. Was there a photo that you used for that, or just she told you about it?
So actually, I mean, a lot of this stuff, I do want to make sure that I keep it accurate to Carolyn's experience with cancer because I've never had it. So I want to make sure that this does resonate with kids who have gone through cancer. But for this specifically, I mean, I've gotten my blood drawn many times
Mm.
for, regular doctor's visits. And when I was younger, not so much anymore, but I used to absolutely hate it. A lot of kids did, but I still wanted to look, even though part of me was like, no, you can't look, you'll freak out. But I did still look at it. So
Yeah,
I
but you're
wanted,
like the squinty eye.
yeah, yeah, I wanted to show that although she's like scared, she's still like, I want to look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, you perfectly captured that. I mean, I could feel that one. Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about it. And I'm really, really looking forward to the coloring and activity book, which we're almost done with that. I know you've already given me all your art, and Lindsay's turned in all her stuff, and um, it's just a matter of getting it cleaned up and ready to go. But one of the cool things about that is that it involves not just coloring pages based on the characters from the book, but it also offers activities and things for kids to do when they're sick. So we love having those. Now you're also getting we're getting ready to have you illustrate another children's book. And I want to point out that and every author is different. So this next author that you're going to be dealing with, it's a completely different type of story, and it's based on her teenage daughter who died of brain cancer. And but she wants to make it an uplifting and happy story to honor her daughter. And I know you're gonna do an amazing job with that, but it's fun to see the differences. Like even when you were illustrating Cole's story for the storybook, the characters and the settings in that were vastly different. One of those actually did have a background, the classroom art room
Mm-hmm.
background. That was really cool and detailed. A lot of detail in that. Is that
Yeah.
hard?
Oh, yes. For me, I mean, all artists will have specific things that they really focus on. My thing, I do really enjoy doing character designs. Backgrounds are a lot more tricky for me because I do really like drawing things that have organic shapes. Just because it's easier to hide imperfections because you're like, well, an organic shape in itself is never perfect. But when
Hmm.
you have a geometric shape like a building or a chair, you do have to make sure that everything looks correct or else it will just be like this doesn't look right. So it's a lot more tricky for me. Some people that might be their thing. This is what I'm really good at. But that for me that's something that I do struggle with. So it was quite tricky to actually do the background for that drawing.
Well, it was great. I mean, it's full of detail and it's very pretty colors and everything. So, that leads me to ask what I wanted to ask. So, I want to point out that you're not, a 40-year-old artist with years and years of experience. You're still in high school. What grade are you?
I'm a senior now.
You're a senior now. So, what do you plan? Do you have a plan for school? Are you going to go to college?
Yeah, so I have talked to a lot of people who are a little older than me asking for advice because I'm in Texas. So, and my parents have like saved up a lot of money for me to have 2 years free tuition, and that only works if I stay in Texas.
Okay.
And it would kind of be very hurtful if I choose to leave. But there are a lot of good schools in Texas. So my first plan was like, I'll go to UT because it's somewhat near my house. I could save a lot of money that way because I can live at home still. But then I realized, oh, UT is insanely hard to get into. And based on like where I'm at, they'll look at my scores and be like, no, no, we won't let you in. But something that I have learned is that if you go to community college first, you can then increase your chances of actually getting into a university because it shows, hey, you kind of know what college is like. So they're not like, oh, you're still kind of in like high school and then you know what I mean. But yeah, I plan to actually go to ACC first, Austin Community College for a year. And the courses they have are really cheap, which is like really nice. I'm actually taking courses right now, and I have been taking ACC classes since last year. Um, so I've already saved quite a bit of money
Good for
doing that.
you. Good for
Yeah.
you. You know, that's something that a lot of counselors now are encouraging people to do is go to community college first. It does save you money and gives you all that experience. Do you know what you want to major in?
I do really want to go into a profession that involves art. I mean, studio art I know is one thing that I could major in. And I think that's probably a dream of mine as well to someday have like something that I make be able to be viewed by somebody else. And I think that can be that can be accomplished through the opportunity that I have here,
Hmm.
which is like really amazing to me.
This is so cool. I see a bright future for you, obviously. I mean, and here you are, and I think this is something I would like to anyone listening in encourage them. You know, it's not about how old you are, what stage of life you're in. If you have an interest in something, if you have a talent in a certain area, take a deep dive. Go ahead, take the risk and do something with it and see what you can do. I know that it would be really, really fun. And I know I think big and dream big, but I so would love to see like the Cuddle Crew turned into a cartoon, you know, like a animated cartoon. Am I saying the words right? You know, the ones that move.
Yes. Yes.
You see, I know nothing. I can write. That's my thing. I can write, but when it comes to drawing and all that, that's just stuff that's beyond me. I'm going to assume then that you've been doing art your whole life. Like, is there a time, do you remember starting out, or is this just your whole life has been art?
So the earliest memory I do have of having art, I think there are a lot of memories that like there will be big gaps in maybe my timeline, but there will be moments where I do have like a very, very detailed memory of something that happened, and probably this is one of them. I remember being in pre-K and it was nap time. I would never sleep and I was really bored all the time. It was like 30 minutes and I couldn't stand it because my attention span was awful. And I think some of the teachers saw that. They're like, hey, like if you're quiet, we'll give you a pencil and paper and just like you could draw. And I'm like, okay, well, that's something that I can do. And I remember it being like really dark and there's all these kind of kids just around me sleeping. And I felt special in a way because I'm like, I'm doing something that no one else here is doing. And I remember I was drawing a snowman. I think that picture is in my dad's office still. He has it at his work. But that was like the first time I remember actually drawing something. And maybe at the time it was like, it felt different because I guess when you're a kid, a lot of memories you have are not memories of calm. It's a lot of memories of activity and excitement. But I think this moment for me was maybe the first time where I'm like, this is something it's very calming for me. And it's a sort of different version of happiness that I can create for myself. And ever since then, I maybe was like, I want to keep feeling this way. So by doing art, I can do that.
Yeah. And I just love this whole story. It's so precious. And you're bringing joy to other people. So you're not just now giving your own self this happy feeling. You gave Carolyn incredible joy, bringing her story to life, and you bring me joy and countless children with cancer who are going to be reading this book. So it's really, really precious, and I cannot wait to see what you come up with for this next project that we're working on. I do want to say to anyone who is listening in on this podcast that if you want to contact Hannah to hire, an amazing artist. We've got the best at Ballesteri. Go to ballesteri.com, look at our author page, and scroll down to see Hannah's name. We've got two Hannahs. This is not Hannah Adams. This is Hannah Weisbrod. So go down to Hannah Weisbrod and click on the photo. And I think your website is right there as soon as you click on your photo. So, but just contact us if you're looking for a really, really gifted artist who will fill your heart with joy. I really want to thank you so much for taking time to talk to me on this podcast, and thank you for all your hard work. And I look forward to all of the amazing adventures we have together very, very soon.
Yes, I thank you for having me. And one last thing I want to mention is I'm being able to bring people happiness is probably something that I've always wanted to do, and you giving me this opportunity has probably given the best gift of the meaning of life that I can have. So I'm really grateful that you've actually given me this opportunity. So I want to thank you as well.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to Laura Eicher for the intro.
Yes, of course.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we will talk again soon.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you again to Hannah for joining me to talk a little bit about what all goes into illustrating a children's book. I'm just amazed by it. We have the best artists at Ballesteri, and I'm so grateful to all of them. If you'd like to know more about Hannah, visit our website, bellastera.com, go to our author section, and when you scroll down to Hannah Weisbrod, click on that photo, and there's information about how you can contact Hannah if you'd like to hire somebody amazing to do some art for you. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.